Welcome to Unit 6, Ancient Rome, from City to Empire. In this new section, we are going to work about Roman society and economic activities, and we are going to have three sections. The first of them is going to be about how Romans organize their social groups, the second of them about urbanism and cities, and the third one is going to be about Roman economy. Roman society was divided into five basic groups: the patricians, plebeians, foreigners, liberty, and slaves, which can be classified according to two categories. The first of them depends on freedom, so we can have free and non-free people. And the second category is citizenship, that is, if people were Roman citizens or not Roman citizens. Let's study each of these categories. Patricians were, as we have already seen in the Republic in the conflict of the orders between the 5th and 3rd centuries BCE, free citizens and a rich minority of nobles, of aristocratic families with political power and economic power as well. The second category are the plebeians, which are also free citizens, and they are formed by farmers, traders, craftsmen, etc., which revolted in this conflict that we have already mentioned for having political rights, even though they didn't have any more economic power than before. The third category are the foreigners, that are free but non-citizens, that is, they had limited rights and no political participations. By the way, their name in Latin were peregrinus, that is a word that you may know before. Their importance grew as the empire grew as well, and the philosopher Seneca wrote about the foreigners in Rome. Seneca himself was born in Cordoba. Look on these vast crowds. The greater part of those crowds have lost their native land. They have left their country, towns, and colonies, and come from all parts of the world. Some have been brought by ambition, some by the exigencies of public office, some by being entrusted with embassies, some by luxury which seeks a convenient spot, rich in vices for its exercise, some by their wish for a liberal education, others by a wish to see the public shows. Some have been led by friendship, some by industry, which finds here a wide field for the display of its powers. Some have brought their beauty for sale, some their eloquence. People of every kind assemble themselves together in Rome. The fourth category are the liberty, which are freed slaves that therefore were free but non-citizens. They did not have full citizenship, and they were classified as inside the plebeians, but in a lower category. Even though they became free, they had some obligations towards their patrons. The patron was the protector, sponsor, and benefactor of the client, so that led to growing situations of the mutual dependency. The last of why would anybody free their slaves? Because of particularly good deeds towards the owner, because of friendship and respect. They bought their own freedom, even though in many cases they were not allowed to hold money, or because they were educated or experienced slaves. It is very important the role of, for example, of some Greek slaves educating patrician families. Slaves, the last of these categories, they were always of foreign origin, and they were not free and non-citizens. They were considered property, not people. They had the hardest jobs in most of the cases, no rights, and they were super important for Roman economy, since they were in charge, for example, of many works in agriculture, mining, etc. We also have to mention women in ancient Rome, and as there were patrician women, plebeian women, foreign women, slave women, etc. In all cases, they were subjected to the so-called paterfamilias, father or husband, and this paterfamilias expression gives the idea of patriarchal society, in which the woman is subjected to the father or pater. They had some rights, but they could not participate in political life. We also have to mention that Emperor Caracalla, in the Constitution Antoniana, gave full Roman citizenship to all freeborn men in the empire, and all free women, they had the same rights as Roman women. That made possible the expansion of Roman citizenship and the incorporation of many peoples in the empire. Civis Romanus sum. Roman urbanism and cities. The word urbanism, by the way, comes from the Latin urbis, that is city, and is the science in charge of studying how cities are formed and their functions. The Roman cities were centers of political life, economic life, and cultural life. And obviously, the city of Roma, was the largest and most important city, reaching 1 million of inhabitants during several periods of the empire. They made loads of cities across the empire, such as, for example, Lutetia, modern-day Paris, Londinium, modern-day London, Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, and Colonia Agrippina, modern-day Cologne in Germany. Also in the Iberian Peninsula, they founded loads of cities, and they used existing cities and made them larger. But for example, we have to mention foundations such as Lugus Augusti, which is Lugo, Asturica Augusta, Astorga, Legio, and León, Pompaelo, que es Pamplona, César Augusta, Zaragoza, Tarraco, Tarragona, Barcino, Barcelona, Augusta Emérita, Mérida, Hispalis, Sevilla, Córdoba, Córdoba, Braca Augusta in Portugal, Braga, and also near Madrid we have the examples of Segovia and Complutum, which is modern-day Alcalá de Henares. The city planning in ancient Rome was based on two ideas. The foundation of the cities were generally with a regular pattern, that is a rectangular city with a grid system in which it's divided into parallel and perpendicular lines. The most important streets are the Cardus, which is the north to south street, and the Decumanus, that goes from east to west. In the intersection of both, we have the Forum, which is the main public space, center for politics, culture, society, etc., where the most important buildings and monuments were found. They had more or less the same function as the Greek agora that we saw in the previous unit. In this example of Timgad in Algeria, we see very clearly the grid pattern in Roman cities. The housing in Rome is divided into two basic categories. The first one is the domus, or home for rich people. Only one family inhabited each house, even though they had slaves, and they were organized around a central atrium or patio. On the other hand, we had the insulae, which were buildings of apartments generally rented with very low quality, and they had workshops and tabernae, that is like bars in the ground floor. Roman economy, section 4.3, is very important. Roman civilization is an urban civilization. Therefore, we have to emphasize the importance of trade. Everything was organized around the city of Rome. That is, the supplies of the city of Rome determined the well-being of Roman economy. The first of the economic activities that we are going to study is agriculture. And the Romans, because of the expansion of the empire, produced many different sorts of things, but each province was specialized. For example, in the case of the Iberian Peninsula, they are going to be specialized on wheat, olives, and grapes. Therefore, also marking the importance of food industries, as we are going to see in the future. Roman agriculture had the following characteristics. They used new farming techniques and they improved existing ones. For example, it is very important the use of the irrigation systems with aqueducts and mills across the empire, the use of the Roman plough that was used, for example, throughout the Middle Ages, and then the 2-year crop rotation system in which the field is divided in two halves and one half is planted 1 year and the following year is let fallow, that is resting, without any crop. The properties in agriculture are divided in two types. The first of them is latifundia, which are large properties that belong to rich citizens and the Roman state, which were worked by slaves and by tenant farmers. They were used for commercial production. These tenant farmers, called colonus, were paid landowners with a portion of their crops in exchange for use of their farmlands. The small-scale properties belonged to peasants, and they were based on a subsistence economy, that is, nothing to be sold in markets. In moments of crisis, these farms were sold to rich owners and joined their latifundia. Craft work is one of the two urban activities, along with trade. And in the case of Rome, there were small-sized workshops with a shop for selling the products, organizing collegia for protection of mutual interest, and as well there were large workshops worked by slaves, like modern-day factories. The most important types of products in ancient Rome were textiles, furniture, weapons, jewelry, pottery, cloth production, glassmaking, etc. Food industries are very important, and for example, from the Iberian Peninsula, they traded with Rome olive oil, wine and bread, but also other type of food products such as garum, which is a sauce made with fermented fish and intestines and salts, very popular in Rome, and in which the south of the Iberian Peninsula was specialized, as we can see, for example, in the archaeological site of Baelo Claudia in the province of Cádiz. Trade is the most important economic activity, and we are going to divide it into internal and external trade. They always lead to Rome, that is, all products were taken to Rome, and Rome was the center of economic activity. Internal trade is based on the trade inside the Roman Empire, and all provinces that had a specialized production, not only in agriculture but also mining and craft work, took their products to Rome. This internal trade was favored by three factors. The first of them is the creation of a vast network of roads connecting the whole empire. These roads are still in use today, with a highway over it. For example, in the case of the Iberian Peninsula, some sections of this road, famous AP7, this Via de la Plata, and many other roads across Europe. This extension of the Roman network has made possible for this creation of, for example, this sort of diagram looking like a metro plan. Internal trade was also favored by the existence of the Mare Nostrum, that is, the control of Rome of all the shores of the Mediterranean and Black Seas. They even call it Mare Internum. Mare Nostrum, by the way, in Latin means our sea. Lacking enemies, that is, the control of the whole shores, implied that there was very easy sea trade. Also, internal trade was favored by the use of a common currency, that is, some British Romans could trade in Egypt with the same currency. That made easier all sorts of exchanges. External trade is also important, and they focused on the imports from three places. From Northern Europe, they brought amber, wheat, and slaves. From Africa, slaves, gold, ivory, and gems. And from Asia, spices, silk, and perfume. Thank you very much for watching.
Si hagués nascut a Roma fa més de 2000 anys, viuria en un imperi, tindríem un esclau i àmfores al pati plenes d'oli i vi i una estàtua de marbre dedicada a mi. Si hagués nascut a Roma fa més de 2000 anys, no faríeu l'exampú el teu cabell daurat i oferiríem bous als déus, brindaríem amb soldats i ens despertaria un carro pujant per l'empedrat. I els turistes es fan fotos on tu i jo vam esmorzar.